Yes? No, okay, let's just. We're good now? Wonderful. How does this sound? Much better. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming this Sunday to this amazing event that we have scheduled for the rest of the afternoon. As most of you know, my name is Stephanie Bloom, and I'm the Director of Caring here at Temple Rodeo Shalom. And I have the opportunity to work with individuals here at the congregation. I have the opportunity to work on program planning, and I have the opportunity to work with 3 wonderful women today to bring this program together. So I just wanted to start off briefly by saying I am thrilled to work with Marilyn Hausfeld, Tina Nauheim, and Robbie Kaplan in bringing this program to you today. In thinking about preparing for this day, I realize there is much to be learned, extending beyond the content that will be presented shortly, in your questions about when to move, where to go, and how to begin the process. I also want you to think about another question related to moving that may be less practical, but certainly important. What moves you emotionally as a person? You may be thinking, how does this question about the experience of being moved emotionally fit in today? What I observed in the months it has taken to coordinate, collaborate, and deliver this program was how moving it was to me. I was able to witness 3 dedicated women demonstrate the art of slowing down to move ahead. Marilyn, Tina, and Robbie embraced the process of planning and collaboration slowly and thoughtfully by being fully present with one another, practicing the yes and not the no but, refraining from judgment, remaining curious and inspiring one another, and I think maybe they had some fun. Individuals likely differ in how they feel emotionally moved, what elicits these emotions, and how it affects them. Overall, though, it's a powerful experience that moves us. Yes, we could probably recall a movie, a song, or perhaps even a sunset that has moved us, maybe even a heartfelt card. But have you ever paused to observe the beauty of collaboration as something moving? I can say I was truly moved when I observed these women embrace the idea that we can create tremendous results together via meaningful collaboration. If we slow down and honestly show up with everyone's best interest at heart. I am happy to turn this program over to you, Marilyn, who I believe said, it's time to just go with the flow.
Flowing ahead. It's my pleasure to introduce Phyllis Palumbi. She's a family therapist in private practice in Reston, Virginia, and began her training among the first residents in family therapy training at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York, and earned her master's degree in psychotherapy at Hahnemann Medical College in Philadelphia. On the faculty at Mount Sinai Hospital, she served as clinical director of the interdisciplinary outpatient program, where she introduced family therapy as a treatment modality. After coming to Washington, Phyllis served as adjunct faculty in the Department of OBGYN at Georgetown Hospital and on the board of Collaborative Professionals of Northern Virginia and on the board of TRS, of course. She has been a commissioner for the Fairfax County Commission on Aging and is on the board of Reston for a Lifetime, which is focused on helping seniors age in place, and on the board of her neighborhood HOA, where she has developed a caring committee based upon models of neighbors helping neighbors. Her current project is the development of a documentary film on aging and resilience, because if you're going to age, you have to be resilient, and here she is.
It is my pleasure to be here today and to see so many old friends. It's heartwarming to do this. I have been on this beamer on many occasions in this very sacred place, and to do this program today is really heartwarming for me. My love of geriatrics came when I was at Mount Sinai, and Alvin Goldfarb, geriatrician at that time, wanted me to integrate his geriatric program and department into my program. And I scratched my head, and he didn't have to convince me too long how important it was for seniors to have a mixed community of being amongst different ages. And I was leaving at that time to get married and move to Connecticut, so I didn't see the actuality of the program, but I know it was very successful. So throughout my career, I have had a special place in my heart for working with couples who are going through what so many of us are going through now. I do want to recognize some people here today, and they are just incredible because their whole focus is on not just healthy aging, but aging well, where it's not a negative, and to think of ways that we can grow and be happy where we are in this life. And people come to me and say, I'm very depressed because I'm losing this, I'm losing that. And we find ways to really address the positives of life. Right now, Sharon Canner, if you could raise your hand, is resting for a lifetime. And she has worked long and hard for the last 10 years to put together a model program of sharing information and enlightening people on what is available in this community. And you'll certainly hear more from Steve in a little while on that one. I don't see Diane Watson, I'm sorry. She's dementia friendly, and she's a wonderful resource for us. I know she was having some medical difficulties herself. And then my partner, Dr. Richard Hilburn, started the ANOVA Hospital House Call programs here years ago, and is a geriatrician, internal medicine. And he was with the VA for a couple of years in Miss Northern Virginia, and we are now together here. He's just started his private practice here in Northern Virginia. Last but not least, I kept on saying, what personal stuff am I going through with aging? And I said, I'm not sure. And then Sandra Fields, who is the Western Fairfax advocate for healthy aging guru, she works tirelessly. And I haven't seen Sandra in 10 years. And the way I met her is my late husband, some of you know, Dr. Joe Palumbi, and that was the last time I was on the BEMA for his memorial. I had to make the painful, very most painful decision of my life of when I could not care for him anymore, and I tried for a while, and I was told by everybody around me, you can't do that. And I cried my eyes out looking at some of the facilities I saw at that time. Then I met Sandra, who was at Great Falls Assisted Living at that time, and her intelligence and her warmth and her energy, I said, this is where I need to put my husband. And I hadn't seen her in 10 years, and then at a social gathering around the holidays, we looked familiar, and she came over to me, she says, I know you. And I said, she said, I was with Great Falls Assisted Living. I knew your husband. He was a physician. I said, yes. She said, he was the nicest man. And then she looked at me, she said, I was the one who called you the day he fell, and that was the day he died. And I know that we're going to not let that 10-year gap go anymore. That was a very special connection for me. So Tina wanted me to talk about the aspects of the psychological aspects of what we go through when we're trying to make change. Most of it's based on fear and what we can anticipate. There are several categories, and I have never met any couple in my practice who's quite like any other couple, so we're all unique, and that has to be taken into account. As a family therapist, I love, when I'm talking to somebody, the family history and how we get to where we are and what are the stumbling blocks are very important in this process. The differences are some people have been living alone and are used to living alone. and they are very determined to keep their routines. As I think I fit into two categories here. I'm probably one in that one. And then couples who have already lost a spouse, a long-time standing relationship. That's another category. Then there are couples who are fairly healthy and reject the idea of, well, I'm not ready yet. And then there are couples who one of the spouses either have a cognitive or physical decline starting, and they know that the handwriting's on the wall in terms of making a decision. Rick and I fall into that category, which as a geriatrician, he has gone to numerous houses, works at Goodman House, did all the assisted living places, and observes this process. And even though I'm 3 or 4 years older than he is, he says, we have to make a plan, Phyllis. We need to do that. And I'm saying, I'm still in my 50s. I'm not ready to do this. And that is a typical response. I was talking to some people here before that say, we did this and it was wonderful and we should have done this a long time ago. And people say, oh, we can pay for this, I want to stay in my home. And there's a huge movement now of people who are helping people to stay in their homes. And that's fine, but the expenses that go along with that, I think, are currently unknown to a lot of people. I think, Nancy, you just said to me that your friend spent $26,000 to have somebody come in for the first month of care. So I think that plays into this wonderfulness of this program, because we're here to educate ourselves to the reality. Then we look at ourselves and our own personality and say, where are we stuck? Are we living in reality? And I have a quote from 2 of my families, and I've seen this same quote in journals of gerontology and geriatrics that people talk about. I'm simply not sure I'm ready to make this move. I know it will be the last move I will make, and that keeps people stuck. The other thing that keeps people stuck, another comment, I'm not prepared to close this chapter in my life and begin what feels like a final one. And this is very concerning, because when I see couples who go through this, I really talk about why they feel that way. Families often try to convince people, Mom, your kitchen is just dirty. Do you realize that you're not functioning? And there's always a put down and then a defense mechanism that is answered back. Oh, you just don't see it, or I missed it, and they don't really realize where they are at that moment in time. So I think that it's very important that we acknowledge when people are at a place, and we need to say, it's okay for you to be in this place now. That's normal, that's natural. But how do we help you to recognize these things and support you through this process? Denial, again, we just talked about that. Along with denial comes anger. Why am I in this situation? I can't believe it. I say that about myself. It's like, couple of weeks from now, I could have a fall, or I could develop something, and I need to really look ahead. Damn it, But the good part of getting older is also to be taken into account. I put on a pair of heels coming here today because that's the way I've always dressed, right? And I said to myself, I don't have to do that anymore. I can be comfortable. And I feel like, man, I have arrived in some place where I can accept where I'm at this point in time. So, again, after the anger, and this is a lot of stuff about grief that you read that Kubler-Ross started, and there are stages that if you think about yourself and where you're at, and I don't know everybody here, but where you are at in this process. After the anger comes bargaining. Well, I'll take a small step. I will do this here. Maybe I'll do a little of this. Maybe I'll go even look at a place. And basically, again, the fears that get associated of not moving have to do with a loss of independence. For myself, I remember we went to the country every summer in the Catskills, and my father had to have a little bungalow, and there was never a camp. We were on our own. It was wonderful. And that's how I learned to grow up, being on my own. Then we went to a place that had a day camp. And my parents said, "You have to go to day camp." And I said, "You're kidding, I'm not going to day camp. No one's going to tell me how long I swim or at what end of the pool I have to swim." I fought the first couple of days and I came home angry. At the end of that, I was the best camper with Color War. I was really into it. So again, when you move from your own independence and your own control over your life and go into a place where there is routines, you know, the positive side of all this, we were talking about this too. I don't have to do the lawn. I don't have to worry about the shingles on my roof anymore. I don't have to call somebody when I need a plumber. These are all the things that certainly bring relief to all of us. And again, there's a wonderful upside of all this, as I'm sure we're going to hear today from those people who have made that move. I went and I met with very good friends of mine who are here today who moved to assisted living. And beautiful place. It came up, you know, rather quickly, and they took it immediately because it had an outside terrace. And they are very happy. And I walked in and I see all the things that were familiar to them that they had in their home. And that, you know, gives them great comfort. And the one thing she said to me, she says, "You know, I can still go to the nail person that I go to for the last 20 years. So when you're making your decision, I think taking into account of who you are, how you react, and how do you plan around that so you have these things around you and people around you. Again, I can go on, and I know we're kind of time-wise, right? Yeah. This should be a 1 or 2 day conference. It's really so important, or support groups, to educate ourselves even further. I mean, I've learned so much about this, you know, living with Dr. Hilburn, you know, as a geriatrician, and I really have so much more respect. You know, I used to think that you don't have to be an alcoholic to treat an alcoholic, but when I have people in my practice now who are going through this, somehow my heart is, you know, because I'm kind of there too. So I wish everybody good luck, and this is a wonderful program ahead of us.
She's right. This should be an entire weekend, and maybe we'll do that at some point. It's my pleasure to introduce Steve Gurney, who founded the Positive Aging Community and Source Book in 1990. If I was on Oprah, I'd say, look under your seat. But you will be getting one of these for your very own at the showcase at the end of the program today. It's a tremendous book. It's better than a goodie bag at a birthday party. It's everything that you want to know. Steve, drawing from the experience of watching his family caring for his grandfather, created a comprehensive publication, voila, to help others in the same situation. And over the years, he expanded the publication to 3 regional editions: DC Metro, State of Maryland, and the Philadelphia region. Steve's worked closely with nearly every regional and national organization on aging to help maximize their exposure and help find solutions to their challenges. He has served as an adjunct professor at the Erickson School of Aging Studies at UMBC, instructing the undergraduate and graduate programs. And I present to you.
All right. Okay, folks. Well, first off, I'm glad you think that this is a great book, that you'd love to read everything that's in it. But I am here to tell you that the phrase I hear more than from anybody for the last 33 years I've been doing this, when I hand this lovely book to people, is, "Oh, that's fine. I'm not ready for that yet." Okay? And so let's all just soak that in. Everybody in this room today, you're not ready for any of the stuff that's in this book. Okay? We're talking about your friends, okay? That's what we're going to be talking about. None of you are going to move to assisted living, nursing, and forget about the aging in place. Just hang out where you're at. we're talking about your friends today. Now, I got 15 minutes, and I could talk for 3 hours, but I got 15 minutes to give you an overview of the concept of aging in place, and then I'm going to tee things up on the different senior living options that are available to you. And then the real stars of the show are going to come on this afternoon, because quite frankly, a lot of us that are up here, we're experts in the field of senior living, and we're going to tell you how to do all this stuff and how to age positively and stuff like that. In the afternoon, you're going to hear from people that have actually made transitions, that have made decisions, and how they feel about those. And those are the experts that you really want to listen to, because they're speaking from a very authentic place. Now, I will mention, I'm 57. When I was 43, I moved in and I lived in 5 different senior living communities as a resident, but I'm not living there now. It was a little social experiment that I was doing, but you're going to get to talk to some folks that have come up with real decisions on how to make a plan for aging in place and how to make a move and made a move, okay? So let's jump in. Okay, first off, by show of hands, how many folks of you, remember, we're not talking about you, how many of you have a friend that has said, don't move me to one of those old folks' homes, I'm gonna stay put right here? Okay, got a few hands. Actually, everybody should have raised their hand, because we all know somebody that has said that, and sometimes it was our parents that said that, and I want you to reflect on the guilt that you felt if you ever saw your friend whose parents said, don't move me to one of those homes. Their friend now has a cognitive impairment and they're not safe in their home, and the guilt that an adult child feels when they're trying to meet mom's needs, that she said, don't move me out of this home, but she's got dementia and she could really hurt herself. It's a lot of guilt, okay? So, first off, aging in place. Most of us want to do it. Most of our friends want to do it. And there's a lot of solutions, and I don't have PowerPoint today, but what I'm going to walk you through here is the table of contents that's in Sourcebook, and we've got a whole aging in place section that starts on page 181. Lots of cool stuff in there that nobody wants, okay, but will help you in your quest to age in place safely and accessibly in your home. But let me just give you a few things to think about, because we can't talk about moving away from your home until we talk about how can you stay in your home, or how your friend can stay in their home. And the first thing is that when you say, I want to stay in your home, is reflecting on why you are staying that. Now, this is real life. I've been doing this 33 years. I've talked to hundreds of people that have said that they're aging in place, and I've dove deeper into that conversation. Real life. I'm aging in place because nobody else hosts Thanksgiving except for me, okay? Yeah, the home's too big, it's a lot of maintenance, but I gotta host Thanksgiving. Who's gonna do it if I don't do it? So that person is aging in place for 364 days of the year for one day, okay? We all can laugh at that and sort of say, oh God, that's kind of unusual. But this is a common statement, okay? Another thing that I hear an awful lot when I kind of push and dive deeper, I'm aging in place because my kids won't visit me if I move somewhere else, okay? My follow-up question to that is, have you had a conversation with your kid about this? Well, no, I just know. It's like, try having a conversation with your kid. 9 out of 10 times they come back to me and they're like, they want me to move. They're like, Mom, thank gosh, you said that. You know, we've been waiting, okay? So the other common thing is that where would I start? I've got 40 years or 50 years of accumulation. How can I move? I'm just going to stay put, okay? So these are some things. There is nothing the matter with wanting to host Thanksgiving and stay in your home. Nothing the matter. But understand it, live with it, rationalize it, and most important, if you want to age in place, you got to have a plan, okay? Hope is not a plan. And so when somebody is saying, I'm going to stay here and I'm not going to move, a plan doesn't need to be a document. You don't need to consult with 100 people. You just need to start having some conversations. And those conversations don't need to happen over a weekend retreat. They can happen over an 8-year process. And looking at different scenarios, reflect on your friends and your circle of friends. And it's sort of like, oh, our couple, we have a friend who's a couple, and the husband got dementia. Honey, what would we do if we were trying to stay here and meet our goal of aging in place and one of us got dementia? A big thing that came up with your keynote speaker here is that, hey, a lot of us are married, okay? And a lot of us think irrationally I think that me and my wife, my lovely wife, are gonna pass away on the same day at the same hour. Like, we don't think that one of us is going to outlive the other, and more than likely, it's this wacky world that we live in. But most of us will outlive our spouses. Most of us will be a solo ager. And when I say a solo ager, a lot of people say, well, what are you talking about, Steve? I got 3 kids. Okay, so I outlive my husband. I got 3 kids. It's like, really, you want your kids to take care of you? No, of course not. It's like, well, guess what? You're a solo ager. Okay, so I know this is exciting. Yeah, can you imagine if we did this for a week conference? I'm trying to pump you up, and this is positive stuff, because what's negative is not thinking about this. It's putting the burden on the network that loves and supports you. Okay, so let me look. Oh boy, okay, that was 5 minutes. I got 10 minutes to go over the housing options. So I just threw out a bunch of things for you to think about. And the main thing is, when I say you need a plan for aging in place, coming to this event and hearing the words come out of my mouth and having them rattle around in your head, that is the start of a plan. The self-talk that's going on in your head right now, what I recommend is, over time, write a few things down. That can be a plan. Talk to your next door neighbor. That can be a plan. Most important, if you've got kids that feel obligated to care for you or loved ones, have a conversation with them in advance of you being in the hospital in a crisis situation. You will appreciate that. Okay, so now it's sort of like, okay, I reflected. I went and talked to my kids about hosting Thanksgiving, and they said, Mom, you gotta move, okay? We don't want to go to your house for Thanksgiving anymore. I've been dying to host it, but I thought that you had to host it, okay? So now it's sort of this freedom. I think I'm going to go take a look at a few of the options that are out there. Now, the good news is just about all the options that I'm talking about right now in the next 5 to 7 minutes are in Sourcebook, and you can get a copy out there. And if you look at the table of contents, you'll see kind of the list that I'm going through. But the first 2 options are not in Sourcebook, but I'm going to tell you how you find them. The first thing is, we talked about aging in place. I want to introduce you to a different concept, aging in community, okay? So, you're ready to look at options outside of the 4-bedroom home on your suburban street, and you love the community you live in, and you've got connections, and your friends are moving across the county to these life plan communities that we're going to tell you about in a moment, but that's not for you. I love this. I love my dry cleaner. She doesn't break the buttons, I want to stay here, okay? So it's sort of like aging in community. I bet, especially with the way things are being constructed these days, I bet there's an apartment building in your community that has a Harris Teeter either in the bottom or right down the street, and you can move on in and go through a little bit of downsizing. You're going to have somebody help you with that today too, and experience a more carefree lifestyle. You're not going to have the obligation of a mortgage if you're financially prepared, which our vet's going to help you with. It's that if you can afford it and you're scared to sell your home, rent a place for a year and keep your home there just in case you got to move back and get into that 4-bedroom house again, okay? There's no sign on these communities that says senior living community. That's why they're not in here, okay? But that's also why this is an appealing option for some people, because when I start talking about these next options, these are age-segregated housing communities with signs on the outside that say, you know, senior living, okay? And for some people, that's not what they want. So aging in community and making a move to a more, I guess, easier place to live. And I'm a big fan. Hey, look, man, let's throw caution to the wind. I know everybody likes having a mortgage and doing all that stuff, but the value of renting a place is that when the lease is up, you can change directions, okay? You don't need to worry about the real estate, you know, taxes and all that stuff. Okay, so that's the first one. Second one, and you're gonna meet somebody who lives in one of these later today, is active adult. 5 minutes, I will be done. Active adult communities, okay? Now, again, these places aren't in here right now. There's maybe a couple. But the way you find the active adult communities in the Washington area right now, it's gonna change, is through realtors. Get a good realtor that's patient and that you're into. Tell her or him or her that you're interested in active adult communities. They will go into the MLS and they'll find all the places. Some are resale, some are new, you know, what have you. Most of these places right now require a mortgage. You may be able to rent some active adult communities for people that are putting their units up for rent, but most of the places are a purchase arrangement. We're all familiar with Leisure World in Silver Spring. That's an example of an active adult. Lansdowne Woods in Leesburg, Heritage Hunt out in Gainesville. These are active adult. No health care provided, lots of clubs. It's like living in a country club, basically, gated community, this, that, and the other, but no health care. Okay, so we got aging in community, you're renting an apartment somewhere or a condo or whatever. You got active adult, no health care, lots of fun, it's a party. You go down to Florida, the most famous active adult community. Anyone want to shout it out? The Villages, yes, it's a fraternity party, round the clock, okay? No, I'm teasing. Okay, so now let's move into the other categories. The first category is independent living senior apartments, okay? These are apartments that you rent. They've got, again, we list them all in here. They've got amenities. A lot of times they have dining. A lot of times they've got activities. Sometimes they don't have any of that. Sometimes they have a lot of that. There are a lot of low income and moderate income senior living, independent living communities. If you know somebody that you think is going to qualify for a subsidy, get them on the list ASAP. Because the day that they're ready, once they finally say, I'm ready, you know, there's going to be a 2-year waiting list. So get them on the list now, and then if their name comes up and they're not ready, they can, you know, defer later. But there are some wonderful subsidized options in the independent living space. There's also some luxurious options in the independent living space where it's almost like living in a hotel around the clock. You get a limo, take you to your doctor's appointments, things like that. Okay, so that's independent living. Now, sometimes independent living will have health care aligned with it. Other times it's, you know, standalone and you're on your own just like you would be if you were in your own home. Okay, the next category of housing is assisted living. One of my favorite assisted livings is right next door in Chesterbrook. Okay, and assisted living is designed for people that aren't capable of living independently but don't need the level of care in a nursing home. Okay, so now I got 2 minutes, so I'm gonna jump right to nursing homes. Nursing homes, none of us wanna walk. I think there was a study done years ago that people are more scared of walking into a nursing home than they are into a prison, okay? So because we're afraid we're gonna catch something and we might be back there as a resident. But nursing homes have radically changed in the last few decades. Nursing homes are great places for short stay rehabilitation, and that's why most of us, if we are going to go to a nursing home, it's going to be a short stay rehabilitation, and then we'll be discharged to our home or we'll be discharged to an assisted living. So the last category, and the one that I love, but it's also the one that is very confusing, but Arvette, later on, if you've got questions, she can help you. But that is life plan communities, continuing care communities. This is where you take independent, assisted, nursing, you put them all together on one campus. The concept is an individual moves in while they're independent, and they can be cared for through an entire lifetime. I find this option is the preferred option for anybody that has gone through a tough caregiving challenge, because they reflect on that tough caregiving challenge that they went through, and they say, I'm going to make this move to this community so I minimize the chance that I'm going to be a burden on my kids or my network or what have you. Also a great option for folks if they're married, because again, the chances of us passing away on the same day at the same time or having simultaneous healthcare things at the same time is minimal. So this is a gift to the surviving spouse as well. So, I think I did it, right? Okay. I'll be around for questions. Like I said, I could probably talk for 3 more hours on this, but I'm glad that you gave me a time limit. And hopefully I gave you a taste of this, but everything that I talked about is in here, and you can get as many copies as you'd like in the back. Okay.
He really is the guru of positive aging. And let me just say, there will be opportunities to ask questions soon, and also at the showcase at the end, so that you'll all be able to ask personal questions and get brochures and information. Moving along, I would love to introduce Arvette Reed, who since 2017 has worked in wealth management at Signature Estate and Investment Advisors, where she helps families bridge the gap between health and finances. Before joining that, Arvette spent 15 years in the senior housing and healthcare industry, spanning independent living, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing, and hospice services. Her experiences helping families uniquely informs how she leads clients through healthcare-driven financial planning, named the Life Care Affordability Plan. Arvette is the board chair for Insight Memory Care Center, and was selected by Wealth Solutions Report as the Black Client Advocate of the Year in 2023, and awarded the 22 Rising Star of the Year award by the financial industry publication RIA Intel. This star will beam some light on the Life Care Affordability Plan.
And I spent 10 years in the software industry and totally
Thank you. You see the two mics in the aisles. You now will have an opportunity to ask questions of any of the wonderful speakers that we've had this morning, this afternoon. So please don't be shy. Come up to a mic if you have a question of any of the people here. Don't everybody run up at once. Think about it a little bit.
Okay. Well, and I want to, while she's coming up, so that we don't have empty airspace, I want to throw out one thing. When you're helping a friend find one of these senior living communities, I want you to not think that you're going to look for old folks' homes. I want you to think that you're going to find the next college that this person is going to go move to. Because college kids don't care about square footage, they don't care about granite countertops, they don't care about anything. They walk onto a campus and they say, I want to party with these kids for the next 4 years. And that's the experience that I want you, look at the people that live in that community and the opportunities there versus the real estate in the walls. That just so that we don't have empty lights there. All right.
Hello? Yeah. My question is a tiny one, but I was blown away by your $250,000 plus. I was blown away by the $250,000 plus estimate for at-home care, full-time home care. I've been told by others it's more like 100,000. And so, can you tell me what makes that up?
Right. So, please repeat the question. So the question was, or the comment was, Arvette, I was really blown away by your $250,000 figure for 24-hour home care. I was told it was 100. So that's what we call a telephone game. That's not true, right? So pre-COVID, the rates were a little lower, but it was still, you needed to budget about 200. Right now, post-COVID,
this is going to be covered later or not, but you talked about the cost of aging in place and care insurance.
Yes.
Can you give a general statement of how that expense would be different if you went into a continuing care facility or an assisted living facility? Because obviously, that's not free. So can you balance those?
Okay, so the question is about long-term care insurance policies and how they work. Once again, you're all going to collect policy, and in there you're going to have daily rates. So some policies will have a daily rate for home care, so you may get one reimbursement if you bring people in, and maybe a separate daily rate, which would be a reimbursement if you move to an assisted living or to a nursing home or to memory care, which is lovely care. What I want everybody to realize is your long-term care insurance policy can be used if you stay home or if you move to a community. So let's say you move to a CCRC, all right? If you move to a community and you're in independent living, you can activate your long-term care insurance policy and bring home care into your independent living. They just consider it home care because now that independent living is not home. Okay? So this idea of do I keep my policy, drop my policy, general advice, keep your policy. I know rates keep going up. General advice, keep your policy because the daily rate is still going to make a big chunk difference in what the real cost is, right? And you already thought about that. Yeah.
My name is Sharon Canner. My colleague Phyllis called out just to mention that if you are aging in place or you just like more information, Reston for a Lifetime, which, yes, is based in Reston, but we have a website and electronic newsletter that's open and free to all. So I left these cards out in the lobby, so please pick them up. And we're here to help Aging in Place. We're a nonprofit. And there is lots of great information. So.
Yeah, I tell people there is no right or wrongs. Everybody's situation is their own situation. So your friend is going to tell you what's right for them. That doesn't mean that's necessarily right for you. You have to do your own journey, figure out what works for you best.
So this may have been the previous question, but, and maybe you're going to address it later. What are the apples to apples comparison of cost that you mentioned, aging in place versus the life care, the life plan communities? Right. You're going to have the numbers and sort of be able to compare.
Yeah, so Steve's book has a lot of information in there, and we have several communities here today. You can get specifics, but this is what I tell clients all the time. Some people think it's cheaper to stay home. That's why I put the 250 number up, because people don't realize that, and the home renovation is all we ever make, right? Once again, you have to do the analysis. We do this all the time with clients. I've got one in the room that we have this conversation with. We can do comparisons of home versus move and show you that there really isn't a huge difference in some cases. What's most important is what do you want? The money will work out. What do you want for your lifestyle? That's the important question. You tell people, what are your hopes? What are your fears? What are your dreams? How do you visualize yourself as you age? Start there. And once you start there, then figure out how to make your money work. A lot of the communities can work with you on different ways to make your money work for you. If you have a financial advisor, be honest with them, take them the price sheet. This is the place I think I want to live. Tell me how you think we can get there. All right? So please don't be afraid by the numbers. Don't start with the numbers. Start with your hopes, your dreams, what do you want, what do you envision, and then let the numbers work for you.
Hi, my name is Steve. I'm related to Sharon. And as you went through all the scenarios, I said, check, we got that. I have a pension from the government and from my secondary employment. So I said, check, check, check. But how do you get someone who can sit down with you and do an independent overall assessment of it's not a question of do we have enough, but how does it all fit together? Where do we find the names of certified individuals who will help us do that? And I'm an economist, I understand numbers.
Yes. So that is what we do as a firm. Like we have people who come on with us for asset management. We used to do a lot of one-off plans. We don't do as many anymore. But when I speak to audiences like this, I do offer like we do the one-off plans. So call me. We can do a quick chat. Some families call
Yeah, and I've been to enough of these, and when I hear these questions, I just want to throw out an elephant in the room question and solution that some of you may be thinking about because you got friends in this situation, and that is $250,000, holy cow. I don't have that. I met with our vet. I don't have $250. What am I going to do? It might be a fraction of that. We all know folks, because quite honestly, there's three groups in the world. Folks that are the wealthy, folks that are impoverished, but they call it the forgotten middle now. I call it the caught between the cracks group. So how do you make it work when you're on a budget? Okay, and here's the one thing that I'm going to say to y'all. Communicate with your network in advance. Document your network in advance. If you go to our website, you'll see a wonderful discussion we did this week called Building Your Personal Village. Nobody does this. Write down all your friends and family. Write down all your connections and have discussions with them. Because the way that people can break that $250,000 a year because they don't have that is the support of their community, the support of their neighbors, the support of their loved ones. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to try to rally that personal network when you're in the emergency room at the hospital. They're telling you you're going to be admitted, and then you're probably going to go to a nursing and rehab center for the next 90 days. And you want to go back home and age in place. And I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this because there's opportunity out there. While you're healthy and active, and you can begin to take an inventory of this network you've got around you, you can have parties, you can have fun, you can do a lot of stuff that you might not be doing because you haven't tapped into that network. So just wanted to throw that out. Yeah.
We have one more question.
Yeah. I think this is more for Steve than our vet, but whoever's the appropriate one. For those of us who have friends thinking about moving to other areas, not in this local jurisdiction, how do we find people like you, Steve, to help us determine the amenities that are available and the things we should consider before we go looking to another area? How do we find people like you for other areas?
In other areas. And I know...
Can I tag on with that question?
Yeah.
This country is pretty dang hard to live in, financially wise. Abroad, are there countries that are far more receptive to old folk?
Oh yeah. Okay, and I know we got to get to moving and downsizing, which is super important, but, and I know our vet echoes these statements. So the first organization, if you're looking in other parts of the country to try to find a source book in another area, the first call that you want to make is to the Area Agency on Aging. It's a government agency. It's in every county and city in the country. So that's the first thing. So you call them up and you say, send me everything you got, you know, what have you. And you could do multiple areas. I recommend doing that. Okay, that's one way. The other way is our vet had talked about the aging life care management profession. There's aging life care managers in every part of the country. That's another great resource. Now, here's a little tip, and I know there's not too many aging life care managers in the room, but one of the things you can do is you can call 3 or 4 in, let's say that you're researching Florida. Call 3 or 4 in Florida. After those 3 or 4 free initial conversations, you're going to be fairly well educated on what's going on in that county, and you're going to have a bunch of other phone numbers to call. So that's my best sort of guidance in when you're looking outside your region. Be careful about moving to where your kids live, because your kids can move if their job changes. So I had somebody that asked the same or that I interviewed years ago, and he and his wife decided, we just want to be close to a major metropolitan airport. That way we can go visit our kids if we need to, okay? So that was one of the things.
And don't feel pressured by your kids to move.
Yeah.
I have a lot of conversations with adult children, like, this is not your decision, this is their decision, because they just want you close because they think they can help. But to that point, we've had lots of clients who have moved, and then their kids move.
Yeah, or they move and their kids don't help. Their kids think they're going to help. Okay, so now I love this question over here about international retirement. look up an online newsletter called International Living, okay? It is so fun. It's like, it's the funnest thing to read, okay? Because you're right. There are countries out there that want U.S. expats to move there, and they will do everything under the sun to just get a $10,000 bank account opened, and all of a sudden you got relatively free health care, you got amenities, this, that, and the other. Now, here's a little thing. It's sort of like, let's say that you move to Panama, okay? And I've done discussions on this, and people will say, well, what about assisted living in Panama? And the response is, when you move to Panama, you move in while you're active and independent with a housekeeper, a cook, and a whole staff in your house, and for pennies, okay? And they transition into your in-home care, okay? That is one of the strategies. Now, in some of these countries, they're saying, yeah, we're starting to build some assisted living because the Americans that are moving here feel like that's where they need to move, you know, but there are solutions in other countries, and this newsletter, International Living, was started in the 70s when there were people out there that didn't have pensions who needed to live off Social Security, and they discovered that a solution is international living. There's downsides to international living. The biggest one is political changes and things of that nature, but hey, where are we living right now? Anyways, okay, I'm going to shut up. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Other than these governmental agencies in the localities, what is the name of the professional that we would be looking for? Somebody like you.
Yeah,
Information about these very issues.
aging life care professionals. Yeah, that's your best bet.
And there is no other Steve. Let's be clear. Like, I've talked to people, I work with clients all over the country, and let me tell you, we are lucky to have Steve. Nobody else has Steve. So.
It's the truth. We're going to take a break in a minute for a stretch and a nosh. When you go out the doors, just go to your left. But I wanted to give you a very quick preview of the second half of the program. The second half has a bit of a reality show in it. It won't be At Home with the Kardashians or The Bachelor, but you'll be able to meet Temple members who have made the housing decision, and they will be sharing that with you. And also Tracy Nero, whose business Wise Moves helps people in every aspect of moving, and especially downsizing, otherwise known as, what are we going to do with all this stuff? So please enjoy a nosh, take a stretch. We'll see you back here.
Thank you so much. Hi.
We're planning on getting going again at 2:30.
I know, that's the thing. So Jennifer's going to be there the whole time. But yeah, no, grab it. We'll do much more. We have a table over there. Yeah. So did I do okay? Did I do okay? Did I make you happy? Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. Oh, yes, I know. All right, so Jennifer's telling me I'm going to be late. Thank you. Thank you so much.
didn't even bring any cards, but I'll write down my number. No, you need, that's right, you need the space to talk about all the pros and cons and where you're coming from. It's a critical time, just to take time to do that.
It's a big life change, but life change is great.
Yeah, no, I know.
So, my name's June.
Nice, yeah. Oh, okay. You may know Rick, too. He knew Alvin Goldfarb, because I go back to the 70s. He was in a way, but I have where in California. God bless him.
So is Alan back yet?
No, this is Rick Hilburn. Go say, don't tell him about your dad.
I don't, is
The
that,
blue jacket. Yeah, yeah. So,
Does he do counseling too, or both of you do?
he does the medical side. And sometimes we work together, it depends on what's needed. Do you have a piece of paper?
I don't have
Isn't
anything.
that crazy?
I don't have
Let me get a
anything.
card from him. Rick?
Stumbled upon the right thing. Boink,
Pen or
put out
anything?
contact, set your
Walls of
This
care.
just, yeah. No, literally, I was on this beam last time was when my husband passed away.
So you have a lot of
A lot of I was on
a
the
lot of
board here.
echoes, a lot of reminiscences.
Hold on.
The good news is, it sounds like this is not going to be, no matter what direction you go into, it's not going to be devastating. You know, meaning, like, let's say you move forward with this project and you try it.
I'll put my,
Right. And you're right in this area.
I'm in Reston, but I've been doing virtual, which some people still like to do the virtual. So,
Palumbo.
yeah.
Palumbo. My daughter's Palumbo.
Oh, who is, Frank? Who is there's
Frank
another
Palumbo.
Palumbo.
Yeah. It's her father-in-law, Frank Palumbo.
Oh, that's interesting, because,
His son and my daughter got divorced, unfortunately, but he and I are good friends.
that's great. I think it's Frank that I'm thinking of, so.
Oh, you know Frank? Or you're just thinking?
Or maybe it's Jim Palumbo, is a friend of Rick's.
I can see you're going to
You
make
know.
this decision.
Hope this doesn't smear. Okay.
Well, I
Okay,
look
thank
forward
you.
to talking with you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is such an important
Well,
program.
it's been very hard for us. I won't
Yeah,
do my consultation now, but
yeah.
I think we need to do it, but can't do it. Do you know the places around here?
He does, and he can help you with that. He knows all of them.
If there's not a line of buyers.
Yeah, yeah.
We've
And-
looked at a lot.
And just from the ones that my patients have gone to.
Well, we actually started paying rent at the Virginian. And it's very close to my daughter, and there's a lot we like about it.
But think about.
So now we own a house and we're paying rent.
Oh, really?
You know, we
Because
Well, you do
it
have to
hasn't
make
been
a
that long,
decision.
but we got a Fisher cut made.
Yeah, no, we have a 3-story townhouse in Reston, and I have a house in the mountains, and I love Charlottesville.
Oh, yeah.
And, but that would be still independent. I don't, here, the Mather, we looked at the Mather here, very expensive,
Oh,
but they have
I looked, it didn't, I want to say, it didn't appeal
yeah,
to me
why
at
didn't
all.
Why didn't it appeal to you?
I don't know, it's like, everything was pretentious to me. It's just like,
5-star restaurant.
yeah, 5-star restaurant.
This is
Hi, I'm Arthur Kopelman. I'm a neonatologist and not a geriatrician. At the other end of the life.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are, absolutely.
He was just talking about making that decision.
Well, my wife
They
and I need to make the decision, and we rented a place at the Virginian, which is very close to our daughter. But that was about a month and a half ago. We're still in our house. We're just sort of paralyzed. Too many things attract us in our house. My wife is a professor. She can't quite give that up. She's a pianist. She can't give up her baby band. It's like, you know, we can't live our life for these things, and she's not doing it.
You should talk to Bill Beckenstein, as a retired pediatrician. He just came up here, the man that was standing here wanting to tell me something. And
You're not practicing. My sister retired in just outside of Raleigh. Why did I don't know. Been in Georgia for the last 10 years and Canada for 25 years before that, and retired in North Carolina. She lives in North Carolina.
A lot of people retired to the Triangle. Left North Carolina, came here to be near our daughter.
That makes sense to me.
But the financial growing up.
It's more expensive here than in North Carolina.
Oh, much more. But everyone here, they say, where are you from? And we say, Eastern North Carolina. I'm here. We're waiting to retire to go to. I mean, it's a easier living. It's less expensive. Beautiful climate.
Oh yeah, I think moving here is immediately 20 grand a year more.
House. It's like Pines. We had a beautiful home, really nice. It was the recession, but here it was much more.
Well, the Virginians are not one of the most expensive places.
How about the quality?
I haven't, 5-6 years ago when I was in private practice before, I had a few patients out there and the quality was good. Currently, I can't speak to it because I don't go out there. I don't have any patients there. I went to work for the VA for a few years, stayed with them through COVID and then left.
But they recognize a growing market for independent living. So
Yeah.
they've switched over. They gutted most of it on the inside.
Yeah.
They built all new apartments, and so about 70% of it is independent living.
Oh, is that right?
But they don't have the programs like the Goodwin House yet. That's the downside. The
tell you,
Goodwin House,
Goodwin
we can't
House
get
is
into
a Cadillac because their cost.
it's the lack of availability.
They want.
They don't have apartments.
Available.
We got on the waiting list at least 4 years ago. We're still waiting.
That's right.
What most people do to get in is they accept a very tiny one-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
And that is a priority to move up.
That's right. The major, have you, now that's, have you,
Not too far from there. We'll do that. I don't know what
it's a little bit metropolitan, but the resources that they have are impressive. I would think that the price is probably close to.
I am. Well, some of these days I'm just here all day.
it's more.
That's all right. You know, I'm very lucky to
Well, a five-star restaurant.
That is a very.
I've never been anywhere.
Yes. I don't believe in drinking.
They have things like, well, we have parking under the building, but it's too long for people to park. So you have to have valet parking car. If you want to leave, you have to valet, go downstairs and bring your car. Well, what do you do with valet? You're talking about instant. Don't you
actually helping us introduction. Is your, how's your wife's health? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey, I gave you my card. Yeah, you did. Oh, no, here. No extra charge. Here, you take this. I only need one. Okay. Okay. Cool.
No, it's just the lack was down, and it went down.
Yeah.
It's right next to the
What's the, what road is that?
Aging in relation, age on a, age and travel. That's an option too. We can't do this.
We're very close to that, on Randolph Road, in the Kingston Avenue. Are you familiar with that? So, if you, on Dolly Madison, if you go across Dolly Madison, off this side of the street from the Clinton restaurant, the street office on the corner of Dolly Madison and the old Cambridge Road, which is the thoroughfare through the middle of town. So, going away from City Center, it's not called the
now we're 15 minutes. The way they put the table.
Oh, okay.
That would help. Thank you. That would help. I'm loud, but not that loud. We're shepherding people back here, so just a moment. We'll start in a moment, so if you're out in the hallway and want to join us, please feel free. Take the last bite of the sandwich. Sorry for you to feel rushed, but this topic needs several days to discuss. If you're joining us, please come on in. Going once. Stephanie, are we a go? Or are we a went?
Food is a lot of competition.
Yes. Okay, we're going to start. Pardon me? Oh, can you not hear me? I'm always afraid I'm too loud. It's my pleasure to introduce Tracy Nero, managing partner of Wise Moves, which I thought was a dance studio, and it's a great name. She found her way into move management from her work organizing and managing estate sales, when she quickly realized that many of her clients were in the process of making major life transitions and needed support in other areas as well, other than just putting everything out the door. The result is a finely tuned, supportive process guiding clients through the ordeal of moving. I bring you.
What a dynamic day. I can't believe the previous presentations that I've had the privilege to be here to listen to. I thought I might be the youngest in the audience, but Steve, I think, is. And I've got my flat shoes on, too. I have to start out by sharing on a personal level that I'm the youngest of three, originally from Pittsburgh, and my husband and I moved to Maryland many years ago, almost 40 years ago. And very quickly, we were confronted with medical emergencies with my parents. Little did we really realize, but they did not do financial planning. And they had several financial difficult situations that had occurred. When my mother had a heart attack and became paralyzed, we were confronted with the cost associated and how to get her appropriate care. And my father, of course, was aging as well. We actually moved my parents into our house, and they had lived with us for 11 years. And God bless my husband. We were high school sweethearts, so he knew my parents very well and welcomed them into our home. I had 3 children at the time, and they were very curious as to how this was going to work out. But I might say after 11 years, they didn't know differently. They loved having my parents there. But as they aged and really, again, did not have solid plans, I was confronted as the youngest, because my older 2 siblings were out of state, with what are we going to do, financially. And so we went through the Medicaid process. It was very arduous, and I had to accumulate 10 years of documents. You can imagine, over 10 years, you have different banks. I mean, it was very overwhelming for me. And I might share with you that it is a wonderful program, but the qualifications for it are very, very difficult. When my parents finally were approved and we were able to move them into skilled care, when I got that phone call, I just cried. But something I really learned about, and I didn't plan on talking about this until I heard the former presentations, was that my husband and I needed to plan. When we were in our 50s, I'll say, we downsized. I had been working in estate sales, and I found that our clients had more needs than just the sale. So we just said yes. We started helping them with all these other, tasks, packing, organizing, getting rid of things that didn't sell, moving into retirement communities, and unpacking and putting things away. The most gratifying experience for me. I'm very passionate about what I do, and my staff is too. But I'll tell you a funny story. I helped a woman who we moved into assisted living. While we were working in her home, we were kind of, she was rather fragile, and we were sort of navigating around her, making sure that whatever we did was not going to be in her way, and she had her walker, When we finally moved her, she was still driving at the time. She wanted to go down to her car to get a few things and was going to run an errand, and I thought, I should go with you, But no, she said, just help me get to my car. So we're navigating around with her walker, and I'm demonstrating because it was really like this. And she went around, she wanted to put something in her trunk. She folded up her walker, threw it in the trunk, and marched right around to the driver's seat. I was scared to death. I thought she was going to fall. She said, honey, get your long-term health insurance now. She said, because that's why I'm able to stay here. Now, I know that there are other things that we've talked about today, but I went home that day and I said to my husband, now, let's get it now. So that's just a couple little personal stories, all right? What a wonderful opportunity to be here today. And as the owner of Wise Moves, I have spent the last 17 years of countless hours working with families, couples, individuals, helping to make downsizing decisions, decluttering, coordinating their move into lifelong communities and retirement communities. I think what's most gratifying about being a senior move manager is helping my clients recreate their home. Again, I have many stories about that, but one that was very profound to me was that we have repeat clients, where we help them move into independent living, and then they may need to move up to assisted living down the road, and then ultimately perhaps to skilled care, memory care. And there was a woman that we had worked with throughout this process. Well, we did need to move her into memory care. And we knew her so well, but we recreated what we thought was significant to her in the artwork and the furniture, just everything we could do to make it special for her. And she walked in and she said, my husband and I used to live here, which was a story that was so profound to me because she recognized it as an apartment. Anyway, it's just a wonderful experience to help folks through this process. I'm here to have a discussion about the D words, okay? Downsizing. And I'm curious, what does downsizing mean to you? Anyone? What's downsizing feel like or sound like? Yes, sir. Yeah, yes. Yes, I certainly can appreciate that, and that's what we help with. If you look at downsizing in the dictionary, it talks about to reduce in number, cut back, or design, or manufacture a smaller version, okay? How about declutter? That too is in the attic, perhaps, but what does declutter mean to you? Anyone here? Decluttering. That's right. Okay. Perhaps the stack of papers, books, whatever it may be. Again, looking in the dictionary, it's to organize and prioritize. Okay? What does the word decide mean to you? And I'll answer that. To solve or conclude a struggle or to resettle. What does the word or term to deal with mean? To come to terms with or to take action with respect, okay? If we look at these words in the form of verbs, they direct us to a word using action, getting started. Not a D word, but action, okay? Your downsizing and or decluttering will not happen unless you decide to take action. It's a mental process. How do we do this? Boxes. Is anyone sweating or feeling a little overwhelmed looking at this picture? The strange thing about me is that I get excited about downsizing. My husband and I did it many, many years ago. Our friends thought we were crazy, but because I was in this service of downsizing, I really learned to prioritize and to simplify. Does your next chapter involve a move? How many of you have been in your long-term homes for 30 years? Several. 40 years? Wow. Okay, I'll stop there. There's probably more. However, I'm here to help take away some of the stress that you may be keeping, that may be keeping you from making decisions and to help you take action. Earlier, I think it was Steve that mentioned the elephant theory. How to eat away at an elephant, one bite at a time. I don't really like that thought, but there's an elephant in each one of our homes that you need to sort of take a bite at, one at a time. A lot of our clients do not realize that in order to do so, you need support and tools to get started. We as Move managers not only have our tools, my staff literally comes with toolkits, okay? But resources and experience to keep the momentum moving. It's going through a mindful of memories for you all, but we respect those memories, but help you to take action with respect. Reprioritizing. If you are looking to get started yourself, I mentioned you will need your tools to be efficient. You should have boxes. You should have tape, a permanent marker to mark things. You can use painter's blue tape for tagging items. And you can write right on the painter's tape and tag the furniture you want to keep. You don't have to tag every single book, but a shelf of books, whatever is important to you. The tools will really help. And large trash bags. You've got to have trash bags, okay? If you are planning to move, the roadmap to downsizing is the floor plan. As Move managers, our clients really appreciate this value, this service. Lots of people actually say it's fun. Some people like to cut out little squares and put them on a floor plan, but let's face it, it's allergy season. One sneeze and it blows your floor plan, okay? We can provide a to-scale drawing of your floor plan. I know that there are people here that you might be on a waiting list for a community, or you don't know exactly where you're going yet, but there are common denominators. We've been doing this for so long that we realize we can help you to prioritize what can fit in a smaller environment. When you move into a smaller environment, you're going to use every piece of furniture. Even if you have a guest bedroom, we recommend getting a sleeper sofa. But anyway, you're going to use every bit of that apartment or condominium. Planning your space does only take a few hours to measure your furniture and lay it out, but in working with a professional, we'll ask you questions and provide solutions you may not have thought of. In short, there's a lot to think about while floor planning, but the effort is well worth it. It can be very stressful on move day if there are too many furnishings or that favorite sofa isn't fitting through the door because there's a turn in the hallway. It can be complicated. Once you do have an established floor plan, you know it's going to work, you can relax, look at it as your roadmap, and begin to think about the next topic. All the contents, what to do with all your stuff, right? To get started, we always recommend taking 15 minutes a day. If you have ample time, get started now. It's never too early to start downsizing and decluttering. Take 15 minutes, work in a designated area. It could be a kitchen junk drawer, or maybe you have more than one junk drawer, but go through the junk drawer, categorize things, have a trash can there so you can throw things out that no longer serve you, and then it'll spur you on to other areas. But if you commit to at least 15 minutes a day in a designated area, it's going to help. We like to think about this process in categories. Sort through your priorities. Do you have collections that were fun when you first started acquiring them, but then people realize that you like certain collections and you start getting more as gifts? Funny story, I went to this woman's home in Maryland, actually, and we do work in Maryland, Virginia, and DC. But as I was walking up to the front door, there were stone figurines of frogs. And I was like, okay, those are cute, Got up to the front door, there was a frog door knocker. When she opened the door, I was greeted with this gold chain, and what do you think was hanging from it? A frog. And I thought, well, this is cute, Walked inside, no kidding. You know those butlers, the wooden ones that stand at people's door, maybe holding a tray or chocolates or something, keys? A frog. As we toured the house, there was frog wallpaper, frogs climbing the walls, and her husband was just drained by the thought of these frogs. So I have 5 minutes, thank you. We packed them up, she wanted to keep them. They moved out of state, and I wonder what happened to those frogs. Anyway, categorize. How many of you have been good stewards of your ancestors' things? Maybe in the attic, china cabinet, contents there. We're here to give you permission to let go of some of those things. You can break it down and maybe choose one of your favorite, maybe grandma's chocolate pot or tea service, and find a place to display it in your new home. But you can pass these things on. Family and friends. If you want to offer items to family and friends, be specific and direct. Set a deadline, especially with the adult children. We had a gentleman once that his kids were going to come every weekend, and week after week after week, they didn't come to collect things. They didn't have the heart to say, Dad, we really don't want these things. But guess what Dad did? He told my husband and I to bring our truck, load the things up, and take it to their house and leave it in the driveway if we had to. That was a unique situation. Never had that come again in 17 years. So guess what? Years later, we went to the children's house to help them. So be careful. With the exception of family, trying to find just the right home for everything can really slow you down in your downsizing process. And also, I'm sure that some of you are aware that maybe your spouse doesn't agree. You've got to massage that process and try to coordinate what, the most favorite things are. I'm going to talk briefly about liquidation, estate sales. Years ago, I did estate sales. Now my services had expanded so much more. Brown furniture. My husband and I said we were high school sweethearts, married right out of college. I welcomed the brown furniture that my parents wanted to give me, but I no longer have it. I developed my own taste. And that was 40 years ago. So time has changed, people have changed. We find more often than not the younger generation does not want your brown furniture. Right now, what's hot on the market are mid-century. Yes, brown, but mid-century furniture is very attractive right now. There's a list of other manufacturers that can be resold. But again, there's other items we need to consider as well. Right now, we sell a lot of sterling because the younger generation doesn't necessarily want it. If you want to keep it, use it. Put it in your kitchen. It'll build more memories with the children, with the adult children or grandchildren, using it. But silver plate pieces have very little value. It's a combination of silver over copper and brass. Sterling silver still has value and is sold by that day's value, by law, by that day's value. If it doesn't say sterling, it's likely not sterling. It helps to offset some of the costs associated with what you're doing with the move. Some silver has lion stamps on it in addition to 925, 900, or 800, which again is referring to the percentage of silver in the metal. Glassware and china. Glassware, if you turn your wine glasses, let's say, over and look at the center of the rim, tilt a piece of it towards the sunlight, and you'll see an acid-etched mark if it is good glass. Baccarat, pieces like that still sell. But if it doesn't, it's really better off donated. China, when you're trying to value your china, keep in mind that the value you see on eBay or replacements is likely 4 times what the seller paid for it, okay? There are some pieces that are still valuable, but the remaining contents are donation. So what we go by in our company is that you're at the top of the food chain. What you're going to keep and take with you is most significant. Then family or friends, liquidation, if we can sell items for our clients, then donation and recycling. There are an endless list of charities, and I'm sure you know about Habitat for Humanity, all these Wider Circle, Friends of the Library, Purple Heart, but nowadays they're not coming into the house because of COVID. We have a theory, and I've talked with the charities about this, that their workers became very comfortable not coming into the house and pulling furniture down the stairs and up from the basement. So they anticipate that you put the larger things or even boxes and bags outside at the front door or open your garage and they'll come in to take them from there. Most of these organizations that are accepting donations, you can call and speak to them directly about what their preferences are. Don't assume that they're going to take everything. And I recommend getting an early in the morning pickup because what happens is their truck gets full. By the time they come to a 2 o'clock pickup, even though you have arranged or prearranged it, they're like, we can't take all this. We can't fit that sofa. So something to think about. Coordinate with the charities. Shredding and trash. There are arranged shredding activities and events. Realtors commonly have shredding events. There's also Shred It that will come to your house to shred. Put your papers in boxes. When you're going through papers in your office, I know it can be arduous, but if you have 3 boxes in front of you, one for keep, one for recycling, like magazines and things like that, or junk mail, and one for shredding. Have someone maybe help you put the shred box in your car and go to an event. It's going to be a good savings for you. Senior Move managers support clients and their families with the emotional and physical aspects of a major transition, therefore reducing the stress associated. The benefits of working with a Senior Move management company is that we are experts in downsizing, and we demonstrate that moves have many moving parts. Most of our client moves that have been in their homes for 40+ years have multiple destinations, perhaps to adult children, again, liquidation, downsizing, donating, trash removal. So we're very much accustomed with all these components and helping with that process. I've touched on some of the knowledge that we come with. We do provide, however, a free consultation, even if you don't plan on moving for a year, 2 years, or if you're just really looking to downsize in anticipation. We can come for a free consultation and talk with you about how we would approach helping. Also leaving you with some homework. We can suggest certain areas that you should work in. Papers, clothing. Over the years you've accumulated, your sizes may have, whatever. Clothing and books. Those are personal areas that you could start on and work on your own. You don't want to pay someone to go through document by document, okay? I'll tell you another brief story because I think my time is just about up. But we helped a gentleman move into a retirement community, and I was at the community about 6 months later, and I said to him, "How's it going, you know?" And he's like, "Tracy, there's one thing I never realized in making this move." And I thought, oh, here it comes. And he said, "To meet my best friend." These communities offer a whole nother lifestyle, a whole new chapter for you. Again, even if you're just downsizing and aging in place, by the time we are done helping, sometimes clients say, "I should have done this a lot sooner, a long time ago." Thank you for the privilege to be here, and at some point I welcome questions, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm going home to get boxes and painter's tape. Lots of boxes. What about the colorings that the kids did when they were in kindergarten? And now they're... Anyway, a quick trivia question. Think back, if you will, to the 50s or 60s, when the voice on the television said, "Good evening, this is Edward R. Murrow, and the program is Person 2." Well, these are the persons who are living their housing decisions. They are Temple members, and they will, I'm going to throw some questions to them. They live in different places, and then afterwards you'll have the opportunity to ask the questions as well. We had hoped for an intimate way to get together, but the way this is, I think I'm going to go over to this podium and start with Craig Byers and Sid Lewick. Hello, are you on? Is there a special switch? I wanted to save the amount of movement. That's all right, I can yell. Thank you. Are we live? Yes. Okay. To Craig and Sid. And then if you'd like, when you're answering the question, come up here so you can be heard. Many people say, as Steve Gurney told us, "I'm not ready for senior housing." Well, what do you say to that? What advice would you give to someone who's considering a community like Ashby Ponds where you live? And when do you know when you're ready? Or when did you know when you were ready? If you'd come up to the podium. Yeah, you can.
I would say that my wife and I, my wife was Betty Anna. She passed away 3 years ago, unfortunately. we have a very good friend in the Temple who's one of the top realtors in Northern Virginia, Nancy Kane. We were friends with her, and when we started talking about things about getting out of the house, and I guess I was the first one that had that thought. Not only did we own our house, but I took care of it. I maintained it. I did all the gardening, all the snow shoveling, the leaf raking, the digging, and so forth. At a certain point, I realized I was tired of doing all that. So we started talking about what are we going to do next? And one thing I didn't want to do was move twice more in my life. My wife, if those of you who knew her, lived in Vienna in our house, but this building was her second home. If I had the money that I spent on gas for her making trips here over 35, 40 years, I wouldn't have to be worrying about having enough money the rest of my life. But when we talked about moving, she didn't want to move far from the Temple. We lived in Vienna. And she said, why don't we move into McLean, where there's apartment houses, and I'll be close to the Temple. And she had two cousins who lived in McLean that she was very close to. And I said, I'm not ready to move into an apartment because a couple years later we might have to move into something where there's a little bit more care for us. So we ultimately finally decided to look into something like Ashby Ponds. We had very good friends who were founding members of Ashby Ponds. I'm sure some of you remember Soup and Jan Saferstein. They were very good friends of ours. We visited them a number of times in Ashby Ponds, and they told us all about it. And once we began looking into it, I realized that that's what we needed to do. I could go on and on here about all the help that's out there and all the benefits, but if anybody wants to talk afterwards, we can. But I've said before, and I'll say it again to you folks, the decision that we made, number one, to get out of the house and to move to some place like Ashby Ponds, for me, was probably the second best decision I ever made in my life. The first one was deciding to marry the lady I married. And to this day, I can't say enough about what we have at Ashby Ponds. I have met so many wonderful people there. And since my wife died, it's just been a real comfort. And actually, Craig Byers and his wife is sitting in the back, Sherry, are members of the Temple. Turns out, I've been member now for 48 years. I think the Byers have been members for, 30 or so years. We didn't meet each other till we moved to Ashby Ponds. Turns out, we found out that we probably sat over in that part of the congregation, and they probably sat behind us for 30 years, and we never met until we moved to Ashby Ponds. But they are two of the absolute nicest people that I have ever met, and they have made my life at Ashby Ponds a real treasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sid. Let me touch on that briefly. Let me ask a question. How many here are in perfect health? Raise your hand. Okay. Our decision came partly because I had some medical problems in 2003. So it's hard to believe it's been 20 years, but 2003 was like 2 weeks ago. And I told my wife at the time, I said, we need to start thinking about what we're going to do if my condition gets worse or if something happens to her. So in the midst of all of that, my mom had some problems. My dad passed away. My mom started falling, and you can see where this is going. We had to deal with Mom. And it got to the point where we had to kind of do an intervention. And the answer was, you can live with us, you can live with my twin sister, or you can go live with my brother. Or you can live somewhere else where you can get the care you need. The obvious answer was to move someplace in the area where she could get the care that she needed. And of course, she didn't pick the obvious choice. She ended up with my sister in Arizona, which was good for her for a while, but then she needed more care, so she moved into assisted living. When my sister moved back from Arizona to the Detroit area where her family is, my mom went back into assisted living and then into long-term care. And then she got dementia, and that was that. So looking at what we were going to do back in 2003 sort of had its predecessors. Unfortunately, that also stretched back to my grandparents, where my great-grandmother lived with my grandmother, and it was not a healthy situation. And we said, we don't want to do that to our kids. Now, we have a slight advantage, unlike many of you whose kids live in this area. My kids live in Massachusetts, which is 8 hours away, and in Charleston, South Carolina, which is 8 hours away. So it's sort of hard to move near my kids because I'd have to have two places, which was my one daughter's suggestion, which led to the problem that Sid alluded to of mowing the grass, shoveling the snow, maintaining the gutters, doing the landscaping, and it got to be too much of a burden. So we made the decision, like Sid and some other people have done, to move somewhere else. And that was the question of when were we ready? We had a friend who decided they were going to do it, and they said, you got to come look at this place, which we did, and that's now where we live out in Ashby Ponds. But it was predicated 20 years ago. Now, we've lived in Ashby Ponds for 3.5 years. So we had a planning window about 15 to 17 years, which worked out very well for us. But it was predicated on medical. We didn't want to maintain the house anymore. There was some road construction that was coming that was going to affect our house. Road construction and traffic, which meant more noise than we already had. So we were looking for some place that was one flat, because we had a 2-story house where we didn't have to shovel the snow, mow the lawn, and et cetera, et cetera. And the other piece was looking long-term. We wanted some place where we can transition to, if necessary, assisted living and long-term care. So CCRC was our choice. I know Steve's still here, but that was our recommendation. Does that suffice? Okay.
Yeah. And there'll be an opportunity to question them with specific things after. Carol? This is Carol Walensky, who's at the Jefferson.
Right. And my story is not too different from what some of these other people have talked about. Although, like Craig, it goes back multiple generations. My grandparents on my mother's side were in what was at that time called an old age home in New York. I moved my mother from New York down to Goodwin House as one of the original residents of their first building at Bailey's Crossroads. My husband's mother ended up, she was living in Milwaukee, and his sister, with his assistance, helped her move into a CCRC in Milwaukee. So this was not a new concept for us. I'm a very rational person. I always plan ahead, and anything in my house is stuff, and stuff is not important to me. My husband is a pack rat. Stuff is very important to him. And I told him, if something happens to you and I am stuck getting rid of all of your stuff, I am going to be very angry. This is not a good situation. So even though he was less inclined to make the move, he kind of bought into this concept of we need to do this while we're both healthy enough to make our own decisions and make our own arrangements, because like some of these other people, our children live like this and we're in the middle. And they're multiple hours away and they weren't about to help. And so we started looking around. We looked at Goodwin House, we looked at Ashby Pines, we looked at Green Spring, we looked at the Jefferson, we looked at Ingleside and Rock Creek. And ultimately, what came down to the deciding factors for us, we lived in North Arlington. Jefferson was 3 miles away. We could keep our doctors, we could keep our friends, we could keep our TRS community. It was the least disruptive to our lifestyle. And it is a condominium, unlike some of these others, so you don't put your name on a waiting list to see if you're going to get in 3 years. If you find a unit you like, you buy it, you move in. And that's essentially what happened to us. I was bored one night, and I started Googling places to live at the Jefferson, and I found something I liked. And within 3 months, we had moved and sold our house, and most of our furniture was either too old or too decrepit or whatever, didn't fit, too big. We have a lot of new stuff, and it was actually kind of fun to do that. And we've been there for over 3 years. We got in just before COVID, and I had a couple of months before COVID, but during COVID, actually, there was a group of women who walked every morning. That was my social life, because we were outdoors, we could be together. If I hadn't had that and I was still living in my house, I would have been a lot more socially isolated, and we really have no regrets.
Thank you. It's not as difficult to talk about putting things in boxes and shipping them off. There are other things involved. And what I want to ask Debbie, who's at Goodwin Living, is what was the emotional component of downsizing and then transitioning to a community environment as opposed to your own house?
Right. So I am at Goodwin House. I've been there for 15 months now. And as I have sat here and listened today, what I have to say really overlaps with what almost everybody has already brought up. So I'm kind of scrapping my prepared stuff and just trying to wing it and see what I can do to expand on what people have said or personalize that. But I do want to start with what I was going to say, with the way I was going to start, because it would have been much more appropriate at the beginning of this program, but there's a little Jewish context here, and that's something that hasn't come up yet, Jewish community in any of these places. So as I was thinking about this, I decided, we're still a little bit in the spirit of Passover, so I'm going to start with a question. At certain times of our lives, many of us have packed up and moved. Why does even thinking about this move feel different than all the others? I guess my answer might vary depending whether or not I'm the wise woman, the wicked woman, the simple woman, or the woman who's in complete denial. So without committing to any of these types, my answer would be that in most other moves, I was excited about why we were moving and where we were moving to. But in contemplating this move, I thought a lot about what I would be losing and leaving behind. Maybe some of you can relate. In my few minutes, I just want to share my personal experience in navigating the winding path from angst about the future to real happiness and peace at Goodwin House. And there were 4 major steps in my process. One was making the decision to go and where to go, and people have talked about that. 2, addressing and accepting a new stage of life. 3, handling the physical move. And 4, letting go of the emotional attachment to my treasures. And I'm going to go back, even though people have addressed the decision on where to go, I just want to add something to that. I was 73 when I decided to begin my search. And what I knew then was I was alone. I knew I wanted to have security when I reached a certain age. I wanted my kids to know that I was safe. And most of all, I knew I needed to be in a community. My worst nightmare was to have something happen to me and find myself with a caretaker isolated in my beautiful condo. That was intolerable. So the whole thing about being ready was really not a part of my equation. I just knew I needed to plan this ahead. I was 73, I did the tours, I visited with people, I did the research, and I ultimately decided on Goodwin House. I felt I liked the building despite the location at Bailey's Crossroads, and I loved the community there. I had gone to so many open houses during my 5 years of waiting that I felt so compatible with the community there. And there was also a 5-year waiting list, and that is something for everybody to consider. You can't just go when you want to go. So moving on from that, the next hurdle, really it's a hurdle, addressing and accepting a new stage of life. Dealing with the emotional impact of my decision would come gradually over the years leading to the move. Stephanie, I have to give, going back to what you said at the beginning and some things Phyllis said too, I have to give big thanks, big hugs to my Wise Aging group. It's a big plug for Wise Aging and what they have brought to my decision. I mean, there are 3 people in this room who are part of that group, and there are others of you in Wise Aging, and so you'll understand what I mean. We had so many discussions that helped me prepare emotionally. We came together initially because we wanted to be realistic and proactive and positive about aging. During the past 10 years, our group is 10 years old, we've read and discussed and learned. We've shared our fears and concerns, and amazingly, we're 10 years older and running smack into some of the most difficult issues of aging. We've listened to each other struggle to find our footing as we enter a new stage. And throughout this 10-year period, we have assured each other that we are strong, competent people with the wisdom, experience, and humor to make good decisions and to thrive moving forward. For me, the shared study, honesty, and support helped me to move forward with confidence. I'm not going to talk about the physical move and just move on to the letting go of the emotional attachment to my treasures, which has been addressed in a number of ways. My children did take some of my things, but not nearly enough. So I donated. I didn't try selling anything. I wasn't really interested in that. I donated books, household items, dishes, furniture, clothes. And before I said goodbye to those things, I found a couple of ways to preserve memories. I took pictures of my home, lots of pictures. I also saved selected pieces from my mother's china, my array of travel souvenirs, and my miscellaneous tchotchkes. And finally, and very importantly to me, I took the time to go through my large collection of family letters, special notes or art projects of my children, as Marilyn mentioned, and the beautiful messages about my husband, Jim, after his death. I read everything, I shed a lot of tears, and I saved a few special samples. It was very important of me to feel the emotion in the items that I was letting go and keeping with me. Eventually, this letting go felt less painful and more liberating and helped me to fit very nicely into my new apartment. The bottom line for me is that this process got me through the emotional turmoil of a major life change, and this is. And now I get to enjoy the benefits. I'm settled in a place that I truly consider home. I feel a lovely sense of security and peace. I can close the door to my apartment and enjoy my privacy. I can open the door and enjoy a stimulating community. I could cook, but I don't. I could clean, but someone does that for me. When I have a maintenance issue, the solution is an easy phone call away. A quick elevator ride brings me to exercise classes, lectures, and concerts. I can spend time out of the building with my precious longtime friends and activities. And I can spend time in the building with new friends and trying new interest options. I don't mean that there are not annoyances. Nothing is perfect, and every day I can see around me the realities of the future. But for me, this move has never been about decline. It's about continuing growth and vitality and fun. No matter what choices you make, I wish you that too.
Tina Nauheim has moved to the atrium, and this is a senior condo building. So how does that differ from the places where the people live in? Oh, sorry. Tina lives in the atrium, which is a senior condo building, and I'd like to ask you how that differs from the other community that we spoke about.
Okay, to keep some time constraints, I'm going to answer the question, and I'm not going to elaborate.
Okay.
I live in the atrium at Metro West. It's on the Fairfax, Virginia line. I look across at the Vienna Metro. And this is an over 55 community. I think Steve talked about that a little bit. I bought a condo. At the time my husband was alive, we bought a condo. There are clubs. There are activities. There's something going on every day. You do whatever it is you like. Some people don't do anything. Some people meet at the pool and swim laps with a group, and then they veg on the chaise lounges in the indoor pool afterwards, and that's their socialization. We didn't know this when we bought there. It's brand new, by the way. So we got rid of furniture and downsized, and all of a sudden, we went from early attic to contemporary. I lost my train of thought.
You wanted to elaborate on what's there?
Yes, what we
Like
didn't
the kinds of
realize
goods.
when we moved is it has a very significant Jewish population. My husband and I were not particularly seeking that, but it has been very, very, very nice. The community started monthly Shabbat dinners recently, and that's open to everybody. We didn't just start a club for the Jewish people. It's open to everybody, and lots of people who are Gentile come and enjoy, and it's a very, very nice experience. So we went there because David had Parkinson's disease, and he couldn't do the stairs in the 3-story townhouse, and the handwriting was on the wall. I didn't know I was going to be living there alone, and I might not have made this move with those circumstances, but now that I'm there, it's a marvelous, marvelous community. And for me, this is not true for everybody, and for folks who want to age in place and stay at home, this is not a disparagement, but for me, it's really, really nice when you're in need and you know that there are people out there. We have people that are cooking for other people because they've had surgery, people giving you rides, or going out for happy hour. There's lots of people that are actually under 60 there, so you do have some diversity. So it's been a great move. It's called the Atrium at Metro West. There's 200 and some odd units there. It's not terribly, terribly dense. There's 6-story buildings. And if something's for sale and you wanted it, you could buy it. So you do need a good realtor, and there are, I used to be a realtor, and I'm not anymore, so this is not a plug for that. But there are realtors who have special training in senior lives and senior residences. So that is a way, if this is something that you're interested in, that would be a way to start.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more question that I'm throwing out to whoever wants to answer it. Are there Jewish activities where you are all living, such as services or holiday celebrations? How does that play out in the places where you're living? Anybody want to tackle that?
When we moved to Ashby Ponds and met Sid and Betty Anna, it was pretty clear that there was a vibrant Jewish community. However, not huge, not in the hundreds yet. It's growing. But Betty Anna and Sid were the main drivers of establishing activities and building a community. With, unfortunately, Betty Anna's passing, that mantle has shifted some to my wife, with Sid and Ross Cohen, who some of you may know. Mort has got some medical problems right now, which is why he's not here. But yes, we do have Jewish activities. Once a month there's a Friday candle lighting service, which becomes mostly social. We just finished a Seder in the community. We have a Saturday lunch once a month. And we've got about, what's the number now? Somewhere between 80 and 100 members of the Jewish community at Ashby Ponds. And about half of them, as you might expect, are fairly active. Part of the problem with that is that some of our members are plank owners. They came to Ashby Ponds when it first opened up. I think the youngest resident now is in their 60s. The oldest is Dottie Brown, who will be 101 next month. So we run the gamut of pretty young to moderately old. It's a very social group. We often meet for dinners. There's a cadre of people that get together. The difficulty that you'll find, it's kind of amusing. When we moved into Ashby Ponds, we knew one person, and that was our friend Linda. So for the first few weeks, of course, three of us had dinner together. And then we started meeting people, and then it sort of branched out. We met Sid and Betty Anna, and that increased the number of people that we knew quite a bit. And the problem we're now facing is we're now planning 2 weeks out for dinners and occasionally 3 weeks out because we're trying to meet with everybody. So in addressing that, my wife has started to schedule the private dining rooms, and we invite 14 other people to join us for dinner. So we get to see people we haven't been able to see because of various things. George Mason volleyball, for example. So it's pretty vibrant. It's growing as people move in. Sales lets us know when they know if the person is Jewish or not. And then we contact them. One of the three of them provides a challah when they move in. So we can introduce ourselves and give them a small gift to welcome to the community.
Nice. Thank you.
My wife has a comment. Right. Oh, yeah. The other wonderful benefit of belonging to Rodef is that even though we're out in Ashburn, we can stream the High Holy Day services, and we do that in one of our theaters with probably, I guess this year, last fall, we had probably 35, 40 people. So it was a pretty good combination. It's open to everybody, of course, but most people don't want to come.
Okay. Thank you. There'll be time also when you go to the showcase after the program. These people will all be there if you have any additional questions. It's been said that home is where the heart is. So whether you're in a senior condo or a senior community, what's most important with that home is that you're with people who make you feel happy. Many people have decided to age in place, and I'm going to have Robbie come up, who is doing just that, because whether it's any of these communities, what did you have to do to your house to make it not only a happy place to live, but a safe one?
We remodeled. We put an addition on the main floor. We have a master suite. We have both a very large bedroom. We have a bathroom. We have a linen closet. We have, I have a big walk-in closet for myself. My husband's closet is not quite as large. And our builder did everything that we needed to do to keep us safe, from the grab bars to flooring that was not slippery, to lever doors, to wider doors. And when we finished the addition, then we remodeled the entire main floor. We took out some walls. We put hardwood floors on the entire main floor so that it would be easy access if somebody was needed a walker. I needed to use a scooter, and it was very helpful to easily get around. We finished the whole process in the end of 2019, and the pandemic hit. And in 2020, we were celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary, so all of our plans were canceled, and our builder was not busy. So he built us a veranda on the back of the house. We have a roof that covers very large decking and French doors, and it's very easy to go in and out. So again, if somebody was in a walker, they would be easy to access the outdoors. Even if it's raining, you have a place where you have just a beautiful outdoors. I'm a gardener, and our vet said you need to decide what it is you really want, and I didn't want to leave my garden. And it's beautiful, but as we mentioned earlier, you have to maintain it. You don't want to be shoveling snow yourself, and there's only so much pruning and weeding I can do. So you need a team of people that are going to help you stay in the house if you plan to stay in the house, and you need to plan and budget accordingly, and you need to cultivate a team. We have a landscape maintenance contract. We have someone's phone ringing. We have, most importantly, a handyman who helps us out for all those, smaller things like insulating and gluing a broken cabinet door and things like that. So we are aging in place. It is very safe. We also have 2 daughters who live close by who come and help us all the time and spend time with us. And we're very happy right now and very safe right now. So right now it's working.
Thank you.
Okay?
We're going to have a brief question and answer period of the people up here, followed by a scintillating showcase down the road in the foyer, where Steve Gurney and Tracy Nero and the people who are sitting up here will be. There are brochures and information, and you can ask one-on-one to whomever you would like to speak to. So right now, if you have any questions, we can come back to these mics, and that you'd like to ask these people, please feel free. And if not, you can ask them at the showcase. The people also who will be at the showcase will be Terry Gross and Barbara Brubeck from Goodwin Living, Stefan Hill from Chesterbrook, Roxanne Southern, Horacio Zamora, and Jay Dawson from the Jefferson, Brietta Hodes from Ashby Pond, and that's the whole story. Yes, question?
Hi, this is Helene Kessler. Thank you so much for all the wisdom you've all shared and experience and everything's really, really helpful. No one has addressed the issue of some of these very hefty deposits for the various independent living, assisted living, continuing care facilities. If one's goal is to try to preserve resources for your family, what are the options available in terms of going into some of these facilities with deposits, refundable deposits, non-refundable deposits, that sort of thing? I realize that's a huge question,
Right.
But where does one go to get comparative information?
Right. Perhaps that could best be answered by the people who are from these communities who are not living there, but are the ones who have all the information about it. And the showcase, which will be right where the food was and is still there. And that concludes our program for today. Thank you all for coming. And don't forget to take a source book. The new version is out. They're at the showcase as well. Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's such a big topic, and it's so much.
I think it was a great idea to do this.
I think it could be a whole weekend of different kinds of, cough drop, anybody?
You know, but people have to start somewhere.
Right.